We are going to get some word on the next lobby very, very soon. I'm still holding out hope for Shanvala making an appearance because I do feel like the buff was very significant, and I have to imagine it's been offered at least once by this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, I talked about this earlier where certain people will have certain pet heroes. And in that spot where we've seen like Malagos get played, Sky Captain Crag get played, certain people, when you get into a certain tier of hero, it's kind of personal preference as to who's had success with certain things, or who thinks they have kind of a unique strategy with a certain hero that other people aren't doing, and they're actually a little bit stronger than other people expect. Like, everyone has these pet heroes, and for me that has been Shambhala in the recent patch. But obviously these players are having differing opinions so far, as we see a Finley option coming out here from Rogo in our crucial final lobby, but really nothing too nutty. This is just kind of those mid-tier tools that I was talking about before.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Finley, and I do think it was between the Malagos and the Crag hero power. We did see a Sky Captain Crag perform relatively well a couple lobbies ago, and I do think that just having a guaranteed power spike versus trying to spike a little bit with Malagos in the early game and not really getting much use out of the hero power in the late game, I do like the Crag option better.
Yeah, I do too. I'm a pretty big fan of Sky Captain Crag as well. Have a pretty high win rate with the hero. But we do see Reno dipping back in again from Dummit. I think he was weirdly absent for the first half of the day, but has started popping up a little bit more in the second half.
That's true. I think Reno has a lot of great targets to use on the hero power ever since the introduction of elementals. Rogojin here, pretty easy hero power. There's not many different curves you can do with Crag. It's less of a curve and just picking the one turn when you go off.
Yes.
And previously, I was seeing a lot of people just do that going into their level 2 tier 5, because then you could immediately try and find a 5-star minion.
So how do people hit these shops with Millhouse? I swear, like, my results with Millhouse, I think Millhouse is the only hero where I'm below global average on win rate, like looking at my own personal stats. Like, I cannot ever get Millhouse to work for me, and I'm purely putting it down to the fact that I never see shops like this when I play this hero.
It really is perfect, right? 2 tokens and the refreshing, so that his Tavern Refresh is discounted by 2 effectively. That is the absolute dream. You can see Fritterus able to level at will.
Yo, that is a pretty spicy looking elemental start here as well.
Party rock, let's go!
So Fritterus has to decide whether or not he wants to commit to it, right? Because, you could argue just buying the bomb here is very reasonable as just the straight-up strongest in a vacuum minion, but if he does want to start party rocking, then he's going to have to freeze here and start building.
Yeah, the freeze does hurt as Millhouse, but I think it would be a little too good to give up on the fact that the continuous buying and selling that you can get as Millhouse works so well with the party rock combination.
Ooh, Jandice with one of the low-key pop-in Jandice strats. This was something that you did also have to look out for, even when Pogos were back in the game. The ability to bounce the Overseer on a demon multiple times in the early game. Really, really strong stats early.
After this turn to Millhouse, I'd like to see how the Jandice pops off, but oh my gosh, he's just handed another party elemental on a silver platter.
Gia,
Hi,
hello. What has happened here? Like, I was going to say the only downside of this freeze is that you really need a playable in that last spot that's going to appear at the end of the turn, because otherwise you don't really have a super strong triple buy. And then Fritterus just hits the absolute nuts with the second party elemental. Fair enough.
And he does just take that last 2 gold to buy a minion and essentially hold it as a gold for later on, which you definitely want to do as Millhouse. You never want to waste the refreshes. Want to take a look at what Jandice is doing and seeing if they are actually going for the swapping back and forth on the Nathrism, and they absolutely have. The Fishu has a giant Imprisoner for this stage of the game.
Yeah, absolutely huge. This is, with the previous Jandice meta, this is one of the best stalling tactics that you could find while you're looking for the Pogo. Obviously now you have to get a little bit more creative with your Jandice strats, with Pogo removed from the pool. So Fishu could just use this to scale all the way up, really, just level very aggressively from this point and just keep pumping stats.
The fact that he also has the teacup means that he can use that as his swap minion of choice. He just needed one more tribe to get even more stats than he would off of the Nathrism Overseer, and there is his choice of Pirate or Mech to do that with.
Gia, I've played this game before. You always swap into the gold. It happens every time.
Yeah, and there's no minion that you actually want the battle cry from in this shop, so there's no harm in swapping first, because that can be an order mistake with Jandice sometimes. If, say, there's another teacup in the shop and you wanted the battle cry. I do think that's the second best outcome to swap into, because mechs have more scaling potential than pirates if you're not playing any other pirates.
Agreed. So yeah, Fishu
and he does just get the good demon buff as well. You don't want it on the Nathrism here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, it looks like Fishu has the openings, at least, of a pretty strong Jandice game. But the downside right now is that after Pogos, I would say the second strongest Jandice strategy is Murlocs. It's something to do with your late game, and Murlocs are actually banned in this lobby. So Fishu is going to find it somewhat difficult to find something to scale into here that's game-winning from Jandice, but just the amount of early stats that he has means that he can level quite aggressively and just look for the power cards to build a comp from him the normal way, I suppose.
It might be a bit more difficult to transition, but who knows, even if we see something like Grand Menagerie Drug, that can be a late game composition too as Jandice. For now, he's going to take a loss to the Finley, which I believe hasn't really danced on anything. I think the buffs from this Sorreless came from playing Death Rattles, which is pretty impressive. I want to see what the Finley has... the Daryl has been up to.
Yeah, I would predict that his tier 2 shop, like he sold to double buy on 6, and that landed on the Sorrelisk, and then he's just played these two Death Rattles from there to buff it up, if I had to guess. But he's setting up pretty well here. Honestly, a pretty powerful early game board with this other Scallywag not only being buffed by South Sea Captain, but also continuing to buff the Sorrelisk. He's really, really strong for this stage of the game right now, honestly.
That's right. It definitely feels like XQN's been getting good incidental dances where you're gonna sell something anyway and you hope that the buffs land on something good, as opposed to the deliberate dances where you isolate the minion that you really want to get all of the buffs on. And that means that he has quite a lot of gold in store as well, which is always great as Daryl, because when you finally do hit the Divine Shield minion, that's when you go for the deliberate dancing.
That's right. Dragon's banned, so no Divine Shield Dragon, but obviously mechs are the big one for Daryl for sure, and then there is, of course, Elementals as well, introducing that new Divine Shield into the pool for Daryl to dance on Tavern 3, so XQN has a lot of big hits in these upcoming taverns that he could set up a huge dance on.
Facing off against Show here, this looks like a lot of Death Rattles with the Sorrelisk, but not really a brand quite yet to try and pay out.
These are some pretty solid attacks so far from Show's Omu, though. Taking a lot of value trades. This wants to go right if you're an XQN fan, but he misses, and that's going to be a pretty big hit for him.
Oh, the fact that the Beast stays alive. That was the difference between a tie or a win, and the Beast itself being the most expensive minion means that the Daryl will be taking a significant chunk of damage here.
How's it going out there?
Double rats? Huh.
It used to be a good danceable minion, but I don't know about now.
Keep up the pressure.
I do, like... When you're playing Daryl, I do like the idea of just some time around 9 or 10 gold, just dancing on the best minion in the shop, just so you're strong for like 1 or 2 turns, right? And then you can get greedy by rolling down other things.
Right. It's definitely a valid strategy, given that XQN is in a position where if he just maintains his lead, their team can come out on top, and you can go for the less greedy Daryl strategy of just, as you said, dancing on the best, if mediocre, minion offered to you, but looks like he is going for just stocking up here, freezing the rat, and I think a lot of the decision to freeze the rat comes from the fact that he has another rat in hand, so he can hold on to the second one as triple potential. Ooh. Dumb it. Did the next closest thing to a Khadgar pop-off with tokens, which is Mama Bear.
Yeah, not bad at all. Of course, they do go very nicely together. It's one of the kind of transitional phases of the Khadgar strat, where you just get giant tabby cats by discovering a Mama Bear off your first triple with the Khadgar.
That was the immediate golden minion for Reno. A lot of the time with Reno, the first minion that gives you a good direction, even if it's not necessarily a late game minion, is the one that you want to golden up because he generally takes too much damage in the early game. Like you can see, he still has the lowest health out of everyone in the lobby, but definitely has some potential to keep getting stronger here. He's looking for Hydras.
And the dynamic really has changed quite a lot with these 6 players who make up the top 3 teams right now, because they won't really know what the situation was. Like, how much do they need a win here? Like, how much is 4th place good enough when everything's so close at the top of the standings? So, you know, we've been talking a lot about how the dynamic is different between the kind of point system that favors getting first a lot and this point system, which is a very flat curve throughout. But do you think it changes that much when you come down to like the very last lobby and everything is so close?
I would think so. And honestly, I would have chickened out like 3 shops ago and bought the Infested Wolf just to replace one of the Tabby Cats. But we see Good Dummit buying the Monstrous Macaw even though he doesn't have Goldrin yet because he's going for late game, which, to be fair, his board currently is quite strong, so you can maybe expect to still be able to get 1 win comfortably. But it's gonna be really tough to get to that point because he hasn't found the time to level.
Not buying a Death Rattle Beast when you have a Golden Mama Bear is such a big call. Like, you can certainly argue that it's the play to win there because he doesn't want to spend gold on Death Rattle Beasts, right? He wants to buy a Macaw, he wants to hit the triple on his Tabby Cat, and he wants to triple into a Goldrin. But now, okay, it looks like he has actually finally bailed out, recognizing that his board state was too weak.
You're doing great out there.
And it does feel like that he might have wasted some gold there, but you can tell where his mindset was at, trying to find a triple on the Tabby Cat tokens, and that would be his signal to then level up and try to find the Goldrin.
Goldrin, indeed. I think his options changed when he hit the Parrot there as well, right? Because once he picked up the Parrot, suddenly he's like, well, actually, now I kind of do want a Death Rattle, right? Something that I can actually fill the gap with until I find my way to Goldrin. So he kind of diverted back and forwards a couple of times that turn, but he is still extremely strong for the current stage of the game, as you can see, pushing a lot of damage over to the Finley here.
That last trade was a big deal, though, getting rid of the 7/7, which was the most expensive minion outside of Mama Bear.
Keep up the pressure.
And he's facing off against Bootylicious here. I don't think we've seen his board in quite some time, so it's going to be tough for Goddammit to estimate whether he is strong enough, but I feel like his comp is safe enough to go for a level.
One of these recruits.
Yeah, I would think so too. He had some options even with that one shop that we were looking at here, but we do now see Bootylicious' board, and it is looking fairly underwhelming. It's the kind of board that is crying out for a Baron Rivendare. He doesn't have one, but he does at least have that Lich King hero power, which is generating a ton of stats for him right now with the Spawn of N'Zoth.
It's quite funny how these two boards interact because they're trying to do the same thing with the Death Rattles and the Beast, but one player doesn't have the mid-game strength of Mama Bear to really coast them through. Instead, they've spent that time leveling, which does get them a little bit closer to Goldrin, but it might mean that he takes quite a bit of damage. We do see him go for the Reborn on the Sneeds instead of the Egg here, or even the Spawns of N'Zoth. So I'm not sure on average if that gets you more stats, but it's definitely a play that means you believe.
I think it does, right? Because it's 0-1 plus 8-8 instead of a 5-1 plus a random legendary. I think the 5-1 plus a random legendary is better than an 8-8 on average, I would argue. And obviously, the egg coming back with 0 attack is fairly irrelevant. But I think the important thing here... Wow, okay, he hit the Hydra while we were away, which is a very, very big deal. But I think the important thing here is that Bootylicious taunted up his spawns this turn, which gave him the freedom to hero power something else, right? Because he knew he could create board space first before his Reborn went off, so he could get max value.
When a Gar spawns off something, but it's not the genie, that's gotta feel sad. It's gonna be a huge win here for Goddammit. I wonder if it's actually gonna be not quite lethal damage, I think, but it's gotta be a huge hit, right?
It's gonna be a catastrophic amount of damage, but speaking of catastrophic damage, Show yet again buying the dust in 8th place there, and I believe, actually, if I saw that right, did Fritterus just die at the same time as well? Are they just going out in 7th and 8th here? wait for the lobby to update once more. He did!
Yeah.
He actually did! They ended the day in the worst possible way. They were kind of cast off from contention of getting into top 2. Would have loved to have put in one big performance to at least show that they can hang with the big boys here. But it's just another very underwhelming result for the team that both myself and Collins were expecting to do very well here.
Sad to see them go like that, but what it does mean is that all of the players who are within 2 points of each other still have a small gap to be able to close, and the fact that nobody finished 8th and 7th means it's very much still anybody's game. We do see here from Bootylicious that he is about to face off against teammate XQN, so there might be some positioning that goes on here to make the stronger player weaker.
And it is so crucial to get this right because 7 health and 4 health respectively, like nothing else matters this turn. Just force the tie. Like nothing against Show and Fritorous at all, but the way this lobby has panned out is perfect for the dramatic tension right now because suddenly every single placement between these remaining 6 players could influence who goes through from Sunday, and it makes micro decisions like trying to exactly tie this fight, which is a largely solvable puzzle, just so crucial for the 2 players involved.
Oh man, it's largely solvable if you're a supercomputer, I want to say, because there are so many tokens that are spawning here.
Yes.
And in the grand scheme of things, it feels like this giant security rover will be putting in too much work.
I agree.
There's a Khadgar!
There is a Khadgar. Okay. There won't be any board space getting cleared, though, to really allow this Khadgar to go ham. At least not for quite some time.
Eliza, but she's at the very end, so not able to get the ward wide buff. Does look like XQN is going to be the one to carry the flag for his team.
Well, if Bootylicious on the Lich King could kill everything except the Rat Pack, which is no longer possible. Oh, it was so close. Because the XQN is only on tier 4 right now, right? But no, it still wouldn't work. No, it's too miserable. It was always going to go down.
And so that means that Dancing Daryl needs to have a top finish to offset the low finish from Bootylicious to have the best shot of making it to Sunday. It's going to be a tall order for Daryl that doesn't have that much late game scaling potential, but he does have a pretty strong beast comp, and at the moment you can see Silver Name here on the mechs.
Yeah,
it feels like his cleave is not that big.
It's not, but it does have Divine Shield and Wind Fury, which does make it a lot more impressive than it first looks in the first place.
Yeah. Big reasoning for Whirlwind Tempest getting removed from the pool was because of Alakir in the first place, but this triple is a major. Now, Siegebreaker definitely looks like the weakest minion, but we've talked about the importance of just having a taunt to make sure that things don't necessarily go wrong. However, Alakir does grant taunt to your leftmost minion.
Interesting. Yeah, I do definitely still respect keeping hold of the taunt here because, if Alakir goes first, you don't have a taunt anymore, right? Like your Wind Fury guy is just going to attack twice, and it's almost certainly going to be dead at that point. So I do appreciate Silvername just recognizing the importance of just having something that can enforce the sequencing of attacks that he does want here.
And even if you don't go first, if they go first and their attack hits your leftmost minion, suddenly your Wind Fury doesn't have Divine Shield, and you can get one less cleave.
Yep.
Oh man, first attack is massive here.
That was a me-first kind of game if I've ever seen one, and that is 2 huge cleaves. Not the best, but there's so much board space wasted here because of both of the death rattles being procced at the same time.
Silvername is cheering. And the fact that he picked up the second Foe Reaver, not the greatest hit, but still gonna be enough to take the win here. Yeah, it's perfect size to get rid of the Mama buff tokens here. Not quite lethal though.
Yeah, 14 damage only being pushed. Silvername would have loved to have hit the lethal there just to be able to secure his top 4 placement. And it's coming all the way down to the wire, and actually Bootylicious has gone out in 6th position here on the Lich King. So it's starting to come down to the wire now for these 5 remaining players.
really all up to the Daryl whether he can offset Bootylicious' low score. It seems like there's been a ton of Beast players that we're watching today. Unusual. No one really getting granted the elemental synergy, and that means that they're all gonna be competing for the same pieces. It's gonna be harder to find the triples, harder to find the cauldrons. He's begging for the Bran, rolling down for it, and still can't find it. It's an awful feeling.
Hello? What? It's 4 jugs and 2 annoying modules and 2 rolls? Okay, fine. Yeah, just completely minus 10 that turn. I think Rogo knows that might just be the end of his game at this point. But the lobby in general is so low health here that this next fight phase could just decide how things are going. And this is huge for the Fishu because he is the player that has the dead guy fight, which means he's almost certain to survive here. And I love this decision where he recognized he didn't get super strong super quickly, so he's gone for kind of a top 4 comp just to try and rectify things. And it's actually going to pay out pretty big here because he should be fairly secure to make a top 4 or even a top 3 with just how low on health everyone in the lobby is right now.
Yeah, we did see a while ago that the Soul Juggler comp did sneak its way into the top 4, and that is just good enough if you can hit the consistency. Reaver not getting to attack first, but it's not a very big deal because the first attack on the other side was just a Divine Shield popper.
That's...
It feels like XQN stats are a bit too much.
Does indeed. We'll see. It looks like he's certainly going to win this fight, although these Divine Shields might have something to say about that, but the positioning of the Divine Shields and that huge value trade on the first 16-16 as well, I think might just actually lock things up in his favor.
Definitely feels like a fight where the small percentage that Alakir might have comes from the needs scamming a little bit, but the Baron has removed from the equation now.
But I do believe now that's already enough damage being taken off the board to secure the survival there, but no such thing can be said for Rogojin here. But I believe, yeah, that is just a 9 damage hit, which means the Alakir actually gets to survive. And that is good news for Silvername on the Alakir, but bad news for the Fishu there, who had the Ghost fight and would really have been hoping to see multiple people die there after he was able to defeat the Ghost.
Rogojin's bottom 4 finish means that Team Purple will have a really rough time of it at the end here, but it's all coming up for Team Silvername and Goddammit, both of them in the top 4, almost securing themselves first place. We'll see how everything shakes out though.
Yeah, we could be, and most likely will be down to top 2 after these next fights, because again, just how low on health everyone is right now. Hello.
Quite funny how the Stasis Elemental gives you an unintended splash dance, but he picked up the perfect minion to keep getting extra stats.
Yeah, this Elemental was absolutely nuts. And honestly, I do like this philosophy from XQN as well. This is much like how I was saying before. I like to have a dance early just so I'm strong for a couple of turns, and then I can look for more greedy targets with more rolls. Like, he could be dead next turn. The game could be ending next turn. So I do like that decision to just the first playable minion he saw, he just danced on it as big as he could. Obviously, that looks a little bit silly because he then immediately rolled into 2 of the best Divine Shield minions in the game straight afterwards. But I think on average, he made a good decision.
I agree. The stats are relatively close on this at first glance. The fact that the Mama Bear will give buffs to all of the Beast Fund, I think puts Goddammit in the lead.
Yeah, once again, bit of a board space concern. Again, with the positioning, means that these tokens are going to stay on the far right. Never mind, that is a horrible attack for XQN because he cleared the space and then immediately just decided to pop open the Rat Pack full of 10-10s. And this is Rat Pack versus we have Rat Pack at home right now, Gia. Like, this is not looking good.
And that does mean that XQN is going to be knocked out. We'll see if he ends up in 4th or 3rd, though, because we are unaware of how the other fight is going down. I want to see Jandis's perspective, maybe?
Jandis survives on 1? How? That's a nightmare for XQN. XQN's partner in Bootylicious already went out in 6th, and now with that other fight tying, that means XQN got the worst possible positioning there as well with the 4th place finish. That's so unlucky for the yellow team overall.
Yup, and it definitely feels like Goddammit and Silvername have the access to first place and will move on to Sunday. But we'll figure out who is going to be second here. It is still so crucial.
Silvername taking his free roll on the Ghost fight here, although, as we mentioned, this was a very, very close lobby, and obviously the Ghost is XQN that has just died. But yes, Silvername certainly knows the situation. It's not hard for them to work out. Both players on Team Green still alive in the lobby right now.
And we will get to see them on Sunday. I wonder about the free roll turn. Generally, I would think that since you are going to face a Ghost, maybe you can spend that gold on something a bit more greedy, like looking for a triple on the Selfless Hero. But as you mentioned, the lobbies were extremely close, so even the Ghost is not necessarily a free win.
Yeah, exactly what I was leading up to, right? Like, I do think Silvername's absolutely correct just to continue to play for max strength right now, because that was a very, very close fight that he had against the Fishu previously, not even pushing enough damage to achieve lethal, so he knows he's not super strong right now, so fully respect him just saying, I just need to secure this Ghost fight.
Honestly, the way that the bans panned out, where there's no Murloc, no Dragons, and just the fact that all these players were in such close contention, so they were more influenced to play for safe strategies, I think is a big reason why we're seeing so many Beast comps, we're seeing Mech, and even Demons come out today, which is not something that you'll usually get to see just playing on ranked.
I mean, there's no way. I don't know why I'm getting excited about any of these Soul Juggler shots. There is just absolutely 0% that this ever happens. But still, whenever you get like a nice snipe on the Hydra, you still can't help but pop off a little bit.
I think the Jandas really already proved her worth by surviving at 1. The Fishu coming in hot there at the end. Very clutch just to be able to make sure he finishes 3rd instead of 4th. But that does mean now that it is Silvername and Goddammit with another 1st and 2nd finish. What is that, like the 3rd lobby today that they've done that?
Yeah, I believe it's at least 2, but it's going to be a huge potential finish for the two of them. That secures their slot through on Sunday, and we will have to wait and see how it pans out between Team Yellow and Team Purple, with obviously Team White being completely out of contention here.
And it does feel bad to say goodbye to Sho and Fritterus like that, but I have to say the players do know each other best, because asking around from some of the Russian-speaking players who they thought was the toughest competition, they did say as early as a week ago, Goddammit, Silvername are the ones to watch out for. And those two players themselves, they talk the talk. They said they weren't scared of anyone, but look at them. Look how they walk the walk as well. All of those 1st and 2nd places.
Oh my
no!
goodness!
It is an exact tie between Purple and Yellow team, which means we move on to our tiebreaker of who has the most top 1s per team.
Which means that it's Yellow going through, as I understand it, right? With those 3 wins to their name, that I believe is our first tiebreaker. So I believe it's going to be Green and Yellow that end up qualifying here. But yeah, while we are getting full confirmation on that, I do want to give a shout out to Dummit and Silvername in particular, because I think the way this is broken down with, you know, streamers and community members being invited to the tournament alongside qualifiers through ladders, you could argue that the Team Green here has the best of both worlds, right? Silvername being arguably the biggest Battleground streamer for a very, very long time, and then Dummit being the #1 placer in the ladder leaderboards right before they reset. Like, you could say this is the premium example of both sides of the coin here, and they've absolutely come out and proved that by stomping this lobby.